I feel like I say this at the beginning of every Barbie video, but this was genuinely one of the hardest things that I've ever ranked in my life. Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. So this video is one that has been a long time coming. You guys have requested that I rank all of the Barbie characters that have been played by Barbie for years, and this time I finally listened. We have 30 girls to get through today, and so I'll try to make this quick. Obviously there are more than 30 Barbie movies, but some characters do appear in multiple movies, which just made things easier for me. And just to make things clear, we are only going to be doing one girl per movie. Sometimes it can get a little bit complicated as some movies do have multiple protagonists, like with The Princess and the Pauper or just the whole Malibu and Brooklyn situation. And there's also a couple movies where it's just like unclear if the lead character is even supposed to be played by Barbie. And so to make things easier, I'm just going to be ranking the blonde protagonist today, as that's who I viewed as Barbie as a kid anyways. And this way we can also cover the brunette counterparts some other time. Also, this video is only going to be covering the animated movies, so either the straight to DVD ones or the straight to streaming services ones. As usual, we're going to be splitting this list up into 3 tiers just to make things easier for me, and so we have 10 girls per tier. And so yeah, with all that being said, let's just jump right into it. So at the very bottom of our list, in last place at number 30, we have Barbie from A Puppy Chase.
No matter what happens, you keep saying everything's going to be fine.
But it is going to be fine.
But what if it isn't? What if after everything, we came all this way and I don't get to do my routine? That would just stink.
But what if you do get to do your routine?
Now, I'm sure that anyone who is even remotely familiar with my Barbie content is not surprised by this decision whatsoever. I feel like I've been hating on this movie and as Barbie as a character in this movie ever since 2019. And you could argue that this Barbie is the same Barbie that we saw in other movies that came out around this time. But because Barbie is just so uncharacteristically Barbie in this movie, I just had to rank her on her own. And honestly, that is the main reason why I dislike this iteration of Barbie so much. Because it's almost like they forgot who Barbie was entirely while they were making this movie. I mean, one of Barbie's main characteristics is that she's always prepared for everything and that she always has a solution to any problem. But then it's like in this movie, they just threw all of that right out the window. Barbie doesn't think to book a car for this surprise that she's been planning in advance. She doesn't pack any supplies for their journey, not even a map to this island that they've never been to before. She's lucky that the golf cart that they rented had one, but then they end up losing that fairly quickly. Stacy is the one who packed the energy bars that they end up living off of for the days that they're stranded, when really that should have been Barbie. And then she's also just like not a very good sister in this movie, which is just like the opposite of the Barbie that we've come to know and love. She won't listen to any of Chelsea's concerns about needing to practice for this dance competition that they came all of this way for. And then she's also just like annoying throughout the entirety of this movie about how they all need to be positive, when honestly they have every right to be negative. I honestly feel like I could just go on and on about how much I dislike Barbie in this movie, but I do feel like I've said all of this before in the past, and so I'll leave it at that for today. Next, we have another iteration of Barbie as Barbie, but this time it's Barbie from A Video Game Hero.
Barbie, you are the most famous in the gaming land. Without your help, our world will not stand.
Wow, I play a lot of video games.
Again, this Barbie is technically the same Barbie that we also saw in the other movies that came out around this time. But this era of movies was so interesting because it was like they were trying to do something different in every movie, almost like the original movies did. And yet, they still called her Barbie in every movie. So even though she was a different person every time, at least it felt that way to me, she was still called Barbie. Are you following me? Because I don't know if I am. Like this one in particular, Barbie was a gamer in this movie. She develops her own games, she codes, she's competitive, and you could argue that because she defeated the emoji virus in this movie, maybe she deserves to be even higher up on this list. But my argument is that many, if not most of the characters on this list do save the universes that they're in their movies, and arguably more important universes than a video game. And I know that all the characters in this movie seemed like they were sentient, but other than the in-game tutorial, they were all NPCs. They said so themselves. So I just don't think Barbie saving this video game world in this movie is as big of a deal as some of the other accomplishments that these girls have on this list. And then besides that fact, I just feel like she doesn't really have that much else going for her, and so that is why I've ranked her so low. Moving on to number 28, we have Tori from The Princess and the Popstar.
Look at her in the spotlight. I love her purple hair,
So I know that the kids that grew up with this movie are a lot older now, and so there's a lot more love for it out there now than there used to be. But I feel like anyone who's familiar with me is aware of the fact that this movie has always been one of my least favorites. And honestly, one of my main reasons for that is because of the two leads in this movie and my distaste towards them. Focusing on Tori, of course, let's start off by covering her good qualities, because she does still have some. So she's a princess and she can sing and play the guitar. She's a fairly good older sister, although she apparently cheats while playing games with them. In the end of the movie, she gets Kira to make her last concert free for her people. She also takes initiative to drive her carriage herself after her driver refuses, so that she can go and try to save her kingdom's magical diamond tree. And she is also able to save it, but unfortunately it's already dead at this point. But then she's also the one who comes up with the idea of using their friendship diamonds to plant another one, which basically saves their entire kingdom, and so all of that is great. But now for the more negative qualities that I feel has earned her this spot on the list. In my opinion, she is quite immature for her age. She's supposed to be a teenager, and yet she's still pulling pranks like the whole donkey portrait incident. She also doesn't exactly make the best decisions. Her reasoning for wanting Kira's life is that she has purple hair, can do anything she wants no matter how crazy, and that she doesn't need to be polite. And I'm sorry, but those are just not good enough reasons in my opinion. Like, what about wanting to see things through her eyes or being able to travel the world and make music? Like, I would have accepted all of those reasons over the ones that she gave. She also goes on to show Kira their kingdom's secret diamond tree moments after meeting. And I understand that parasocial relationships are very much a thing, but honestly this just makes me question how trustworthy Tori is in regards to her kingdom's security. But the real kicker for me is that this girl is the princess of this kingdom, and yet she had no idea that they were in a drought. That is just an unforgivable level of ignorance in my opinion. By the end of the movie, she does realize that she needs to use her voice for the people that don't have one, but I still have no idea how she made it to that conclusion with the events that are in this movie. Nonetheless, I do know that she is a fairly beloved character, and so I do apologize to the Tori stans for her low ranking. Up next, we have Kara from Princess Power. So Kara is obviously a princess, but she's also a superhero under the alias Super Sparkle. And I honestly feel like she should lose some points just based off of that awful superhero name alone. But let's cover her positive qualities first as well. So she's really passionate about her community garden project, which is great. However, once she gets into all of that superhero stuff, she does kind of forget about this garden goal that she had. But to be fair, suddenly gaining superpowers is fairly life-changing, and she does come back around to this goal in the end of the movie as we do see it getting built. But as I said, she's a superhero, and so she can fly, has agility and super strength, and not to mention sparkle bombs. We see her save numerous civilians throughout the movie, as well as put a stop to some criminal activity. The ways in which she is able to do this, though, is a little bit questionable at times, like how she's constantly throwing people up in mid-air, or in other cases, directly into buildings. Like, she's probably caused a lot of trauma to the people that she's saved, but hey, at least they're alive. And then, of course, she also does one of the most iconic things that has ever happened in any of the Barbie movies, when she saves her castle from the lava by just simply pushing it upright. And speaking of which, she does also save their entire kingdom from the movie's supervillain. This is with the help of Dark Sparkle, but I still feel like she played her part. And I do acknowledge the fact that I'm probably a little bit biased, like maybe if I liked this movie more, then Kara could have been even higher up on this list, but unfortunately that is not the case. Number 26 might be a little bit of a shocker, but it is Kristen from The Pink Shoes.
Whoa! Hold on! I'm not getting married. I'm only 17.
17? Better late than never, my sweet. You don't look a day over 16.
Honestly, I wasn't lying when I said that this list was very hard to make, and I do feel bad for putting Kristen so low because I do love her movie so much. But if we're talking about the characters themselves, then I do have to admit that she did many things throughout this movie that just bothered me. Like how after they're transported into the ballet realm and she refuses to take off her shoes so that they can go home. I understand that if she did this, it would have kind of ruined the movie and that she was kind of busy by the fact that she was trying to live out her ballet fantasies. But I feel like it really wasn't fair to her friend who was transported there with her without her consent. And then there's the whole choreography thing where all she wants to do is follow her heart and improvise all of her dances, which is a great idea in theory, but it just doesn't apply to ballet, which is like arguably the strictest form of dance out there. She does have some good qualities though, like the fact that she's a ballerina does get some points from me, and how she goes to save Haley without a second thought after she's kidnapped by the Snow Queen. She's also able to defeat her and save Haley as well as the rest of the ballet realm, but then she just goes on to annoy me again in the end as she does her own film choreography during their big dance recital. And I'm honestly not even sure if all of these reasons mean she deserves to be this low on the list, but it is where I've placed her nonetheless. Next, we have Courtney from Rockin' Royals.
This is going to be interesting. Huh?
Now, this may seem like a little bit of a low ranking, and that's probably because it is, but honestly for me, I just don't think that Courtney gave us enough in her movie. She is a princess, and so she has a magical princess wand that she uses for really important things like refilling her smoothie. She's also very polite and well-mannered. She can also sing and writes her own songs, and she's a real team player. When she's sent to Camp Pop by mistake, she's quick to make friends and join in with them. They did, however, steal something from Princess Tori for Princess Courtney in this movie, as she also speaks about pulling pranks and even describes doing the exact same donkey one that we saw Tori do in The Princess and the Pop Star. So I do have to dock off some points for that, as we all know how I feel about those pranks. But honestly, for me, it just comes down to the fact that I like the other girls that are coming up next on this list more. One thing I will say about Courtney, though, is that she's got great hair. Whether it's blonde or pink, I just love it, and that actually brings us right into today's sponsor, which is Kitsch. Kitsch is a female-owned global hair care and accessory brand, and I think if Courtney or any of the other girls on this list were real, they would love Kitsch. I personally love their shampoo and conditioner bars. I use their rosemary and biotin volumizing shampoo and conditioners. They smell great, I love using them, and they work great, especially on my naturally thin, flat hair. Last time I talked about Kitsch, I was using their rice water protein bars, which were great for repairing damaged hair follicles and preventing split ends. And when I still had extensions, that was exactly what I needed. But now that I'm back to just my natural hair, I've really needed all the help that I can get with adding some volume back into it. And the rosemary and biotin that's in these bars has really helped with that. I also love that Kitsch bars are free of phthalates, parabens, silicones, and sulfates, as not having those things in the products that I use is really just so important for the health of my hair. Their self-draining soap dish is also great to keep the bars dry and goop-free, and I also just think it looks really cute in my shower. So if you want to try out Kitsch, be sure to click that link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. This will get you 25% off your order, which will auto-apply at checkout. It's also worth noting that with my discount, each shampoo or conditioner bar comes out to be around $11, and so that's like $21 for the set, which is super affordable. Kitsch also ships in the US and internationally to over 90 countries, so be sure to click that link in the description or scan that QR code. Thank you so much to Kitsch for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Now let's get back to our list. At number 24, we have our first arguably good Barbie as Barbie character, and that is Barbie from A Great Puppy Adventure.
Oh, Taffy, you're covered in taffy. Good thing I didn't name you Mud.
Puppy Adventure Barbie, in my opinion, just does a really great job of embodying who Barbie is supposed to be as a character. There's constant comments throughout the movie about all of the jobs that she's had over the years. She was even their town's ceremonial mayor when she was 4. And if you're not familiar, this movie is a treasure hunting movie. And so Barbie brings a lot to the table in that regard. She's got some insane rock climbing skills, and she figures out the key with the vase fairly quickly. She also, unlike Puppy Chase Barbie, is extremely prepared for everything. She's brought helmets with headlamps, life jackets, and rope, all for this adventure. And so you may be thinking, Caitlin, if this Barbie is so great, then why is she so low? And that's just because while she may be a fine character, she's just not really a standout in my opinion. I think that this movie and just Barbie as a character in it is fairly forgettable. And I just feel like when you think about iconic characters that Barbie has played over the years, I'm just like not too sure that this girl is one that comes to mind. And so that's why I have her a little bit lower. Up next, we have our first Barbie that was featured in multiple movies, and that is Barbie from A Perfect Christmas and A Ponytail.
Skipper, Stacy, did you see that?
See what?
That horse!
What are you talking about?
I guess... nothing. Nothing at all.
So these movies came out around the same time, and it was just very clear that these two Barbies were supposed to be the same person, and for the first time on this list, they actually felt like they were. And so focusing on Perfect Christmas first, what stands out to me is the fact that they really highlighted how great of a sister Barbie is. I mean, she literally travels with her 3 younger sisters as the only chaperone over Christmas, no less. And then when they don't make it to New York, she promises to get them there even if she has to drive them there herself. And even though this isn't what ends up happening, I still respect the fact that she she was so determined. She can also sing and dance, and she gives Skipper the idea of doing the show that they were going to miss in the city there instead, even going on to back off from helping when Skipper asks her to. And then moving on to a ponytail, she once again travels alone with her sisters, but this time to Switzerland. And this is the movie where we really see Barbie's connection with horses. And so we see her save one that's trapped by a rock. And this isn't just any horse that she saves, it just so happens to be a special Majestique horse. She then ends up training the horse so that she can ride it, and the horse even ends up trusting her enough that it shows her his entire tribe. And then after seeing this location once, Barbie is able to locate it again later on in the movie, which I honestly think is very impressive. Her only fault, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that she does ride Majesty in the final competition, which I just personally don't like, as he is a wild horse. And then there's also the fact that she originally planned to take him back to Malibu with her, although she does end up doing the right thing in the end as she lets him be free. But then kind of similarly to A Great Puppy Adventure, I just personally don't think that this Barbie is memorable enough to have her be any higher up on this list. Moving on to number 22, we have Barbie from the Barbie Diaries.
Well, you can't say your wish out loud. You'll totally jinx it.
We just did.
I know. Sorry about that. Could have been a great year for you guys.
Now, I honestly can't believe that I'm putting this girl so low because I do love her with my whole heart. But at the same time, as we are currently talking about those iconic Barbie movie characters, I just personally don't think that the delusional girl in high school is one that comes to mind. I mean, maybe she is for you, but for me, we still got a little bit of ways to go before we get to them. But I will say that this Barbie does still have a lot going for her. She's the lead singer of her band, has a sick canopy bed, and a cool garage hangout spot. Not to mention her diary with the matching bracelet, which I was just so jealous of as a kid. And then there's also the fact that she's just supposed to be this average girl who was bullied by Raquel. She is fairly selfish, but at the same time, it's like what teenage girl isn't? And she does still put her friends first in the end of her movie, which I feel like is what matters. She's also smart. She gets a 97 on her science test that everyone else in her class does really poorly on. But I am also kind of convinced that she is mainly book smart. I mean, she goes on to have numerous full-blown fantasies throughout the movie. She thinks her secret admirer is Todd when it is so obviously not Todd. And then there's also the whole thing where she goes on to think that her diary is magic. And like, I know that it was weird that it was given to her by that mysterious saleswoman, but I still feel like there was some delusion in there as well. All of that being said though, I do still love this girl, although I am able to acknowledge the fact that I'm sure part of that love just comes down to nostalgia. And then finishing off the bottom of this list, we have Barbie from Spy Squad.
Huh? Oh, a stick. Cool.
I have to admit, I am a little bit sad that this Barbie ended up so low on this list, especially because I do think that she has a lot of really great qualities. I mean, she's a spy first and foremost, but she's also a gymnast, which led to her being a natural at the laser field and the robot trials. She's also quite smart. I mean, she figures out who the jewel thief is fairly quickly. I know we all figured it out way before her while watching this movie, but then once she sees Patricia at the gym, she is able to put all the pieces together. She also decides to go and try and stop her even after they've been fired. And she was smart enough to put a tracker on her. She's also the one that comes up with the idea of sneaking through the air ducts to get to the off-limits section. And she's also got some solid character development as we see her make that jump at the end of the movie that she wasn't able to make in the beginning. And then of course there's also that little fact that she helps defeat the villain and save the world. But honestly, the main thing that I love about this character is that she's such a great friend. She's the one who convinces all of them to become spies in the first place. And I love the scene where she talks Teresa through using that grappling hook bag thing. And then there's also the fact that at one point she chooses to go back and help Teresa instead of catching the thief, which I feel like we can all admit was a little bit annoying in the moment, but it still does speak to her character. She does still have some teenage qualities to her as well, like how we see them goof off on the first day of training or on their mission when we see them completely destroy that kitchen and then dip. But overall, I really don't think that she is that bad, which is why I'm glad that I have her at least near the top of the bottom 10. Alright, so we have reached our mid-tier, and first up we have Alexa from Secret Door.
Excuse me?
No!
So we are starting off strong because I do really enjoy Alexa's character. From day one, I have always said that she is very relatable, and that is something that I've always loved about her. She is a princess who is also a bookworm and can sing and dance, and we also see her go through some solid character development throughout the movie. In the beginning, she refuses to speak at the equestrian club and makes excuses as to why she can't go to dance lessons, but then by the end of the movie, we see her public speaking and not only attending the dance, but performing at it with her friends. And then of course, there's all the work that she she does after she enters the realm of the secret door. After she arrives and learns that she has magic, she immediately wants to help them take down Malusha, and in the end of the movie, she does just that. She's the one who figures out that the way to defeat her is through surrendering, which I just found to be so clever. Honestly, I think Alexa's great, and I hate to say it, but maybe if her movie had a better color palette, then she could have been even higher up on this list. Up next, we have Thumbelina from Thumbelina.
It won't be so cute if I fall.
Oh, you're not gonna fall. You're gonna fly.
Now, if you've seen this movie, you might recall that Barbie is also in this movie. She intros us into the movie by telling the story to a group of children, and the title of it is also Barbie Thumbelina, or sometimes Barbie Presents Thumbelina, but it was never Barbie as Thumbelina, which is an important distinction. So I think it's safe to say that Thumbelina in this movie isn't technically played by Barbie, but she is still without a doubt the main character of her movie, which is why I included her on this list. And honestly, I think that Thumbelina is adorable, and I do think that she has some really great characteristics. She can make plants grow, she can speak to birds, she can also make clothes and purses out of plants, and she was also the one that comes up with the idea of using flower petals as wings so that the Twiller bees can fly. Not to mention, she is also a great voice for the environment. She sacrifices her freedom to stay with McKenna and try to stop them from demolishing her home, and in the end of the movie, she stands up to McKenna's parents to get them to stop the construction. This is also another situation where it's just like, unfortunately, I don't love the movie so much, and so if I did like the movie more, she probably could have been even higher up on this list. But I will say that as far as Thumbelina as a character goes, I do really like her and I think that she's great. At number 18, we have our mermaid Rapunzel, Lumina from Pearl Princess.
Wow.
Huh?
You got the job.
A job? I have a job! What's a job?
This girl is honestly just such a sweetheart and I love her so much. First of all, she's a mermaid, obviously, but she's also a secret princess, which is fun. And that also means that she has a really interesting backstory, with Scylla kidnapping her as a baby and raising her herself instead of getting rid of her like she was instructed to do. She can also do pearl magic, which I feel like sounds a lot cooler than it actually is. It's basically like telekinesis with pearls, but she can also change their color, which actually, no, I take it back. That is pretty cool. But honestly, the main thing that I love about Lumina is that she's been through so much and yet she is still so kind and down to earth. I immediately think about her relationship with that stonefish and how she helped him make friends by covering his spikes with pearls and encouraging him to be nice to others. And then when they made it to Mermaid City and he was all nervous, she also comforts him. And then I talk about this every single time I talk about this movie, but I also just love the simplicity of her getting a job and how much she loves it. And then her positive impact on people is just shown at the end of the movie when everyone rallies to help her. I honestly can't think of one negative thing to say about this girl. I just love her and I'm sorry that she is so low. But now we're really getting into the good ones, as up next we have the icon that is present day Barbie.
Where's your cabin, Isla?
My cabin?
Yeah, where are you gonna sleep?
Oh, I'm sleeping on the beach. She kills me, this one.
So this is the same Barbie that we've had since Dolphin Magic in 2017. She's also the same Barbie from the Dreamhouse Adventures series and the Barbie vlogs on YouTube. And so I assume that whenever kids think about who Barbie is today, this is the Barbie that comes to mind. She's basically just like a more modern and more teenage version of the Barbie that I grew up with. And I do think that this version of Barbie does get some slack from the OG fans that I don't think is necessarily deserved. Because like I said, I do think that she is a really sweet character. First of all, she's a great friend and we've seen this in almost every movie that she's featured in. In Dolphin Magic, she keeps Isla's mermaid secret from everyone, even her sisters. In Princess Adventure, she agrees to switch places with Amelia and even advocates for her as she is portraying her. And then in Big City, Big Dreams, she is more hurt by the fact that Brooklyn thinks that she pushed her than she is about getting kicked out of school. And then there's also Recipe for Friendship. Like I could honestly just go on and on about how great of a friend this Barbie is. She also cares about animals and the environment. In Babysitting Adventure, she's off planting trees in the Amazon for the entirety of the movie. In Mermaid Power, we see them all cleaning up the ocean at the beginning, and then there's also just everything she does in Dolphin Magic to save the gemstone dolphins. She can also sing and dance and is a vlogger and a great sister as well. And then there's also just like the entirety of the ending of Princess Adventure and how she basically saves Amelia and her kingdom for being taken over by Johan. And then I'm sure there's also just like so much that I'm missing, as this girl has been in almost 10 movies at this point, and that's just including the movies and not all of the other things that she's been in. But I personally think that it's safe to say that this Barbie is in good hands. Moving on, we have our sci-fi Barbie from Starlight Adventure.
Barbie, Barbie, I'll see you back at home. Don't be late for dinner.
Okay.
Now, this Barbie kind of caused some controversy within the Barbie fandom when this movie first came out, and that's because she's named Barbie, but she very clearly exists in a very separate universe from Barbie. And so I talk about this every single time we cover this movie, but I basically see it as Barbie is playing a character in this movie who also happens to be named Barbie. Anyways, this girl can also sing, she can play the guitar, she's one with nature and is good with animals. There's the whole thing where she ends up letting the Starlian go because of her animal activism, but then this ends up ruining the whole mission and she gets kicked off of it, but then she ends up using her powers to get it back. And speaking of her powers, this girl has humming telekinesis, which I personally think is like the coolest thing. She also has great agility and just absolutely kills it on her hoverboard. I mean, she was literally chosen by the King's Council to help reset the universe's stars because of her hoverboard skills. But then it also turns out that there was this whole other prophecy that she was the special one needed to save the world, and so she's the chosen one, basically. The stars literally danced for her when she was born. She also has a bit of a complex backstory as well, with her mom having passed away, and she's also got her quirks, like how she's always late for everything and is a little bit awkward as well. And then to top it all off, she does fulfill the prophecy and saves the universe, and is then named an official princess by the king because of this. This Barbie is just so cool, and I honestly wanted to have her ranked even higher up on this list, but then when I saw who was next, I was like, oh, I literally can't. Like, we are truly among the greats now. And speaking of the greats, let's move on to our next Barbie, which is Eden from A Christmas Carol.
The real Aunt Marie would never say she was wrong. She raised me perfectly to be a star.
I raised you to be a perfectly selfish ninny.
Now, this is another situation where I'm not exactly sure if Eden is supposed to be Barbie. She's voiced by a different actress, and so I'll take that as a no. And once again, Barbie starts off this movie by telling her story. Nonetheless, she is still definitely the lead of her movie, and so that's why she's here. I would also argue that even though we're only at like, what, number 15? Yeah, like, even though we're at like the exact middle of this list, I still think that Eden is the most complex character out of all of these girls. But let's start with the basics first. So she's an opera singer, and not just any opera singer. Barbie calls her the most famous singing star in all of Victorian England. She also owns, operates, and performs at her own shows in her own theater. And she's in love with her best friend, but that's just my own interpretation. That being said though, we must still acknowledge the fact that at the start of this movie, she is a total brat. She throws a fit when Catherine doesn't watch her performance, and then she makes everyone work on Christmas and threatens their jobs if they don't. But then we come to find out that she's only like this because of her childhood trauma. As a kid, she never got a break herself, not even on Christmas. Her aunt never decorated or celebrated with her. She's also very clearly scared of her aunt. Like when she comes to Catherine's to take her home, she says that she screamed at everyone. And then after that, she was never able to celebrate with Catherine and her family again. And this was because her aunt wouldn't leave her alone for 1 second. And so it's like, yeah, her character is awful, but there's a reason why she's that way. And of course, she has her character development and changes her ways by the end of the movie. We see her begin to show sympathy at the orphanage, and then the one thing that really brings her to change is the fear that Catherine will end up just like her. I honestly think that Eden is such a good character, and arguably maybe even too complex for the BCU. And now, this is kind of crazy, but hang with me here, as up next we have Odette from Swan Lake.
You got him, Odette! Ow! I think he got me.
He did score a few points.
From the moment I started making this video, I had a feeling that Odette would be very high on this list, and the fact that she's not in the top 10 does pain me a little bit, but it just goes to show how good the Barbie lead characters are. So obviously Odette is a ballerina and a baker, but she's also a bit more shy and reserved. Like, she doesn't want to go out exploring with her sister or go to the village dances, but I did also get the vibe in the beginning that she was a little bit envious of her sister's adventurous spirit. She also loves animals and goes out of her way to help them, like when we see her save that bird from the bowl of flour, or just everything she does for Lila, from stopping a man from shooting her to helping her remove the rope. She's also another interesting character because she is another case of the chosen one, but then she's also insecure and refuses to actually believe that she could be the chosen one. She actually only ends up agreeing to help the people of the Enchanted Forest after she's turned into a swan, which I honestly don't blame her for. Like, I could never, but then when you compare her to other lead characters like Alina Lena, for example, she does then fall a little bit short. That being said though, she does have some pretty solid character development, to the point where she eventually refuses to go to safety with Daniel and chooses to stay and help those in the forest. And although she denies it, I actually would argue that she was fairly brave from the start. I feel like not many people would cross an unsteady log way up in the air over a river, in heels mind you, all to help a unicorn. She's also very smart. She comes up with and conducts a plan on getting into Rothbart's home. She stands up to him after she has the crystal, and even without it, in the end, she still stands up to him. And then she ends up defeating him through the power of true love and saving the forest. I honestly love Odette. I think she's a beautiful dancer, and I absolutely love her wardrobe in this movie. However, I do think that in comparison to some of the other lead girls on this list, she does fall just like a little bit short. And honestly, I'm sure my nostalgia is one of the main reasons why she's this high up to begin with. But nonetheless, I still love her, and so that's why she's in my top 15. Moving on, we then have the wonderful Corinne from the Three Musketeers.
Nice story. Too bad yours won't have a happy ending.
So I feel like some people might think that this is a bit of a low placement, others might think that it's a bit of a high one, but for me I felt like this was the perfect spot for Corinne. So obviously she is a farm girl who dreams about breaking gender norms and becoming a musketeer. She's a very skilled fighter, she's good at acrobatics and has very quick reflexes. She's also very brave. She travels to Paris on her own to pursue her dream. She breaks into palace grounds to get her cat back. There's also of course the whole hot air balloon incident where she saved the prince's life, and then after doing so, she stands up to him when he says that girls can't be musketeers. She's also a very kind person. I really like the scene where she helps Elaine after she's treated poorly, or when she takes the time to go back and retrieve Renee's bow for her. And then of course, with the help of her 3 other musketeers, she then saves the prince and the rest of the kingdom in the end of the movie. Corinne is honestly just such a great character, and I would 100% understand anyone having her as their favorite. Moving on though, we then have Lyanna from Diamond Castle.
Free him! I'm gonna eat some.
Those boys? They'll give you indigestion.
So if you're not familiar, although I highly doubt it at this point, Diamond Castle is one of those movies with 2 leads, Lyanna and Alexa. And in making this video, it was really the first time where I looked at these characters as individuals instead of a collective. And it really made me realize that Lyanna does a lot more in this movie than Alexa does. But as far as her characteristics go, she's a singer, she's a florist, and a lesbian if you watch the movie the right way. She can make rocks into jewelry, she harmonizes beautifully, and can play the guitar. Not to mention she's also like incredibly physically strong. As we see near the end of the movie, after her and Alexa get thrown off of a cliff, she is able to hold up herself and Alexa's weight. But something else that I really love about her is how she's always able to remain positive even in the worst circumstances. Like how after the storm ruins their entire inventory and she's still able to remain optimistic. She is also just so incredibly kind. Lyanna was the one that gave her lunch away to the old woman even though she was starving herself. And then once the lady gave them the mirror in exchange and they get it cleaned up, she then suggests giving it back to her. She also doesn't hesitate to help Melody and the muses. And then on top of all of this, she is also incredibly smart. When Slider comes for Melody, she is quick to look for another mirror to leave behind to buy them some time. And she's also the one that comes up with the idea of filling in for the twins and performing. She's the one that figures out the troll's riddle almost instantly, and she's the one that realizes that they need to sing to make the castle appear in the end of the movie. But honestly, I feel like Lyanna's main standout as a character is how she reacted to Lydia's trick with the house. Because when Alexa wanted to give up and stay in this fancy dream house, Lyanna was the one that knew that the right thing to do was to continue on with their journey. And then she even went on to do so herself after Alexa stayed behind. Which, speaking of, she was also not afraid to stand up to Lydia. Honestly, I have just so much more respect for Lyanna after making this video, and I definitely feel as though she deserves this spot on the list. And then last up for our middle tier, we have Mariposa from Mariposa.
Can I ask you guys something? Do you ever feel, I don't know, like you don't belong?
So this is another, and I think our last instance, where I don't actually think this character is supposed to be played by Barbie, at least as far as the first movie is concerned. If you're not familiar, Mariposa takes place in the Fairytopia universe. So we start off with Alina narrating her story to Bibble. So that would mean that Barbie is playing Alina in this movie, and then Mariposa is played by somebody else, maybe Raquel, I don't know. That would explain why Mariposa has brown eyes instead of Barbie's typical blue, and why she has a different voice actor. But once again, I am still including her, as she is very much so the main character of her movie, and it does get a little bit complicated when you bring the sequel into the picture, because she is then played by Barbie in that movie. Anyways, Mariposa is one of my all-time favorites. I love her so very much. I feel like having a separate voice actor for her really made her stand out amongst the other Barbie protagonists, and the voice itself kind of gave her this certain edge and uniqueness that the other Barbie leads at the time just don't have. But she is a bookworm who is a little bit awkward and doesn't like going to parties. She is also a working fairy, as we see her working for those other two kind of annoying fairies. But similarly to a lot of the other girls on this list, she longs for more and dreams of one day venturing beyond Flutterfield. She is then chosen by the prince himself to save their entire kingdom after just one meeting. So if that doesn't speak to her character, or to more so just like the prince's delusion, then I don't know what does. Nonetheless, he definitely chose the right girl to do so, because that is exactly what she goes on to do. We also see just how brave she is throughout the movie. From the very beginning, we see her sitting on the very edge of Flutterfield without a care for the Skeezites. She then of course goes on this whole journey to save the kingdom, and during this she comes up with the idea of using flowers to hide from the Skeezites, bribes Zinzi into helping them, and figures out where the antidote is. She is also able to read the constellations to figure out where to go after they lose their map, and stands up to Henna in the end, saving everyone. Now there is a sequel to this movie, but as I've said before, I kind of have a hard time as viewing each of these Mariposas as being the same person. The second movie just came out so far apart from the first one, and the animation is different and the voice actors are different, but just in case I do have any die-hard Mariposa and the Fairy Princess stands watching, I feel like I should mention that in that movie, she is working as a royal historian and is chosen as a royal ambassador of Flutterfield. She doesn't believe what everyone says about crystal fairies, and remains kind even when the king treats her poorly. And then even when she is told to leave, she still comes back to warn them all about the Gwillian. And then of course she also ends up saving their kingdom as well at the end of that movie. So we have finally reached our top 10, and first up we have our original Barbie movie lead, which is Clara from the Nutcracker.
This is not good.
Not so fearless now.
So I personally feel like Clara set the bar very high in terms of great Barbie movie main characters. I feel like it was clear from the very first movie that they knew who they wanted Barbie to portray as a character, and they did that and more with this movie. I mean, first of all, she's the secret sugar plum princess, and she has magic. She's also a ballerina and a dreamer who longs for adventure. She's also brave. We do see her stand up to the Mouse King without a second thought. To be fair though, this is when she was human-sized and he was mouse-sized, and then after he shrinks her down, she does back off. But then she proceeds to climb up the mantle to escape him. Not to mention, she does also throw her shoe at him, stopping him from shooting the Nutcracker, and then this causes him to fall and lose consciousness, which in the end saves them from his attack. She also then follows the Nutcracker into a whole other realm so that she can find the Sugar Plum Princess and become her full size again. And then speaking of her bravery, we also see her fly over this entire body of water on nothing but this like branch swing that the fairies made for her. And then like most Barbie movie leads, she's also very smart. She figures out fairly quickly that the Nutcracker is Prince Eric, and then when her friends are kidnapped, she sneaks into the castle and tricks the guards into leaving their station, and then figures out that they're being held behind an invisible force field and breaks it. I think my only complaint that I would have in regards to Clara was just how quickly she was willing to give up everything for this guy that she just met. But then at the same time, it's like, what was she really giving up anyways? Tommy? Like, who cares about him? He was annoying anyways. And she always longed for that adventure, which was exactly what the Nutcracker gave her. And so maybe I do understand why she was so easily willing to just give up everything for him. There was also the fact that her Sugar Plum Princess look was just everything, and I do feel like I have to give her some bonus points for that as well. Next, we have our Queen of the Waves, Merlia from A Mermaid Tale.
Ow! Those are me.
What?
What? They're my toes.
Toes?
toes. They're very ticklish.
Now, I just love Merlia. I feel like she is such an interesting character. First of all, she's part mermaid, and so I feel like that kind of speaks for itself. But she's also a talented surfer, lives in a super cool beach house, and is named after the life force of the sea, which by the end of the second movie, she's also able to create herself. I will admit that I do feel like she has some selfish tendencies, like how in the first movie she only agrees to help Oceana so that her life can get back to normal again, or in the sequel when she kind of blows up at her mom for wanting her at the ceremony and not the surf meet. But I also kind of like that she has these characteristics because it just makes her more of a realistic teenager. And by the end of both of these movies, she does have character development, like how she decides to stay and help in the first movie and really owns that mermaid side of her, and how she apologizes to her mom in the second. I also find Merlia to be incredibly clever and resourceful. The task where she had to get that comb out of the cave immediately comes to mind, how she climbed up the side of it and was able to figure out that she needed to use her hands and feet to get it out. She also comes up with the idea of surfing the current in the first movie, and a plan to get her necklace. And then on top of all of this, she truly cares about her friends. We see this when she goes back into the cave as it's collapsing to save Snouts, even though she was already safely outside. And then there's also just like everything she does for Kylie in the second movie, when you could argue that they were never even friends to begin with. She also defeats the evil heiress, saving her kingdom and the entire ocean twice. And there's also the fact that she does all of this in the sequel, even though it could mean giving up her human side forever. For me, when I think about strong Barbie movie main characters, Merlia is 100% a part of that conversation. I absolutely love her character. I love her pink streaks in her hair. I just feel like she really has everything that a Barbie lead character should have. And then on top of all of that, she's also part mermaid. Moving on to number 8, we have Genevieve from the 12 Dancing Princesses.
I brought new shoes, as you requested. Were the ones before not to your liking?
Not at all. We just wore them out. We've been out dancing.
First of all, I feel as though I have to acknowledge my bias, because as a lot of you probably know, 12 Dancing Princesses is one of my all-time favorite Barbie movies, and so I'm sure that has played a little bit into my ranking here. And you could argue that her accomplishments maybe aren't as big as some of the other girls in my top 10, but I still just love Genevieve as a character just so much that I really couldn't place her any lower than this. So obviously Genevieve is a princess, and she's also a middle child to 11 other sisters. She also has a pet cat, she is a ballerina, and is always late to everything. She knows how to play chess and can sing and harmonize beautifully with her sisters. I also find her to be very maternal, which I feel like is important when they have lost their mother. And I also got the vibe that her sisters really admire and look up to her, which we saw when they trusted her in talking to their father for them. She's also crushing on their shoe cobbler, which is one of my personal favorite parts of her story. And then she also marries him by the end of the movie, which I just feel like goes to show that she's not just some stuck-up princess. She just loves Derek for who he is and doesn't care who or what he's come from. And then just like I've said with practically every girl that's near the top of this list, she's also very smart as well. She's the one that figures out that their books all match the flowers on the floor, and she realizes that they have to dance from oldest to youngest. She's also observant enough to realize that something was going on with Rowena, and she stands up for Lacey when she mistreats her. And then of course at the end of the movie, with the help of Derek and her sisters, she defeats Rowena, saving their kingdom and their father. I honestly feel like Genevieve is just one of the sweetest and most down-to-earth Barbie movie leads, and I love her very much. And then next we have another OG, as it is Alina from the Fairytopia series.
Where are we now?
Once again, I feel like Alina has everything that you want to see in a Barbie movie main character. First of all, you're able to empathize with her at the beginning of her story, because Alina isn't like the other girls. Yes, she's a fairy, but she's a fairy who was born without wings. So she's an outcast and is bullied because of this. And yet she still doesn't let this stop her. She is extremely brave and courageous, as we see this in all 3 of her movies. In Fairytopia, she travels on her own by foot all the way to Fairytown to try to save the Magic Meadow. And then in Mermaidia, she sets out to rescue Nalu without a question. And then in the 3rd movie, she stops Laverna once again and saves the first blush of spring. Her character also plays a little bit into the chosen one trope. In the 1st movie, we learn that she has the rainbow in her eyes, which means that she's destined for great things. And it's because of this that Azura puts her whole faith in her to save Fairytopia. And then similarly to Prince Carlos, she definitely chose the right person to have faith in. She's also persistent and quite clever. She doesn't give up when Dahlia Alia refuses to help in the first movie and is able to convince her. She then gambles with the merfairies in the second movie, and figures out the Delphine riddle quite quickly. Not to mention, she also didn't succumb to the persuasion of using the mist for something selfish in Mermaidia as well. And then not only did she save Fairytopia not once but 3 times, but in the second movie she did this by trading her wings for a tail, even though it meant that she could possibly never be a fairy again. Now, she does have her faults in the third movie, which is why I personally feel like it's the worst out of the 3, but in Magic of the Rainbow she does get tricked by Laverna into turning her into a fairy again. But I do feel like it's important to note that this was only something that was able to happen because Laverna played into her kindness and willingness to help others. And she still defeats her in the end, saving Fairytopia once again. But what I love so much about Alina is that she never lets this fame that she has for saving the world so many times get to her head. She always just says that she did what she had to do. She also lives in a flower and has arguably the best Barbie movie sidekick of all time. And so I feel like it's safe to say that Alina definitely deserves this spot on the list. At number 6, we have Blair, or Princess Sophia from Princess Charm School.
That's pretty. Emily drew it. She loved the story of me being found on my mom's doorstep.
So when I went into this video, I just knew that Blair would end up being very high on this list. Even though her movie isn't necessarily one of like my all-time favorites, I still feel like Blair as a character is definitely one of the best. She is one of the most down-to-earth, lovable, and kind Barbie movie leads that we've ever had. I mean, first of all, she's got the backstory. She's the lost princess. She was supposed to die in that car crash, but she survived. And then being left on a doorstep as a baby, and the way that she talks about it so nonchalantly. But it really is in that humble upbringing that I feel like makes her character so lovable. She grew up poor, she works at a coffee shop to pay the bills, she does all the grocery shopping, she takes care of her sick mother, and she's a great big sister. When she's first chosen to attend Princess Charm School, she doesn't even want to go, probably because of all of the work that she does for her family and the fear of what would happen if she left them. But then only when she realizes that it could change their lives forever is when she agrees to go. And then in terms of her life at school, she is not discouraged when she learns that only 27% of lottery girls make it. Once classes start, she works hard to become a better student and gains confidence. She also speaks up for herself when Dame Devon talks about destroying her neighborhood. And then not to mention, she's also like low-key a fashion designer. Those uniforms that she made for her and her friends were just so iconic. And she's also the one that came up with the idea of doing that so that they wouldn't fail their classes. She's also smart as well, and we see this at the end of the movie when they're all trapped and she realizes that she can use her phone's keypad to get out. I also just love how confident she is in the fact that she's the lost princess after they figure that out. It is kind of crazy that she was so confident about this, but I also feel like that just goes to show her character development that she went through throughout the movie. And then to top it all off, in the end, despite all that she did, she still chooses Delancey as her Lady Royal. Honestly, I feel like that choice alone makes her deserve this spot on my list. Up next, we have my girl Annika from The Magic of Pegasus.
It's not fair! You don't understand anything! You're ruining my life!
As I'm sure many of you guys know, The Magic of Pegasus is my second favorite Barbie movie of all time, and it really wouldn't have that title if I didn't love the main character as much as I do. So Annika is also a princess, but her twist is just a little bit different from Blair's. Instead of being a secret princess herself, she has a secret princess sister instead, who also just so happens to be a Pegasus. And I feel like that part of her story definitely gives her some bonus points, at least as far as I'm concerned. She also has a bit of a tragic past. Because her sister was turned into a flying horse, she then grew up very sheltered. But she still hasn't let this stop her from doing what she loves, which is figure skating. And while I do admire this quality of hers, it does also kind of end up being her downfall. I mean, it's because of her sneaking out to skate that her entire kingdom ends up getting turned into stone. But at the same time, this also isn't really something that was Annika's fault, and it was kind of more so just like bound to happen eventually. Like the way that her parents were handling this situation wasn't exactly sustainable. And this is also what reconnects her with her sister and sends her on that journey to find the Wand of Light. And then speaking of, I also love the fact that she goes on this journey for something that she doesn't even know exists or not, but yet she is still so determined to try. Through this, we also see just how confident and fearless she is, like how she ventures into the Forbidden Forest without a problem or slides right into that giant's house to get Shiver back. She also shows just how clever she is on this journey as well. Again, her encounter with Ollie comes to mind and how she was able to talk herself out of becoming his lunch, and and then escape with nothing but a carrot and a hair ribbon. And she is also the one that figures out that the Wand of Light is only able to work when you use it for good. Obviously, Annika is still young though, and so she does still have some teenage tendencies. Like the fact that she brings home a bear cub as a pet, I feel like is a little bit concerning. And the scene where she gets mad at her parents and announces that they're ruining her life comes to mind. But this also kind of reminds me of Merlia and the fact that at least they made her a realistic teenager in some aspects. And then of course in the end she does stop Wenlock and saves everyone, and she's also big enough to realize her wrongdoings and apologize to her parents as well. And then not exactly related to Annika, but she also has the best Barbie movie boyfriend in my opinion. And I like how through her relationship with Aiden we got to see her more sassy and witty side as well. I just honestly love Annika so much, and I just know that she will forever be one of my all-time favorites. Coming in at number 4, we have Rapunzel.
She was talking to,
the most handsome man I've ever seen.
And you've seen how many men before?
Now, this character is another one that I just feel like is the true embodiment of a perfect Barbie movie main character. She also has a bit of a complicated past. I mean, she is Rapunzel after all. So she was stolen from her parents as a baby and then held captive by Gothel for all of these years. She is a lost princess, she is an artist, and she's also very adventurous and curious. When they discover that secret passageway, she follows it without hesitation. And yet later, when her freedom is once again at her fingertips, she still decides to go back to help Penelope's father. She also has a magic paintbrush that allows her to magically transport from place to place, or it can also create a dress out of thin air. She is also very brave and strong, as we see her stand up to Gothel in the end, or how she hops on Penelope's back to fly over the barrier like it's nothing. And then despite the fact that she's been sheltered her whole life, she still has such a good head on her shoulders. Like how quick she is to call out the conflicts between the two kingdoms as foolish, and how she doesn't hesitate to help Katrina after she falls into that hole. And then I also love how she was able to protect the prince by making sure that she never learned his name. And then to top it all off, she is able to defeat Gothel by trapping her in her own spell. And then I don't know if I mentioned this already, but she also has some great fashions throughout the movie. I absolutely love her wardrobe. And I could honestly just go on and on with reasons as to why I love this character so very much, and so I'll just leave it at that for today. Moving on to number 3, we have Barbie from A Fashion Fairy Tale and A Fairy's Secret.
Wait a minute. When I did The Three Musketeers, we shot in this old French castle, and it was filled with secret panels and passageways. Maybe the writing is on the wall.
Now, this might come as a little bit of a shock to some of you because it's like, yes, this Barbie is great, but is she better than Rapunzel or Blair or even Odette at this point? Like, arguably no. But the one thing that this character has over all of those girls is the meta aspect. It's the fact that she is technically every single one of those girls as well. Every Barbie character from Clara up until arguably Dolphin Magic, we have this Barbie to thank. And I know it gets a little bit complicated based off of which lore that you follow, but as far as I'm concerned, actress Barbie deserves all of her flowers, and I do credit her for all of those movies. And honestly, there was an iteration of this list where she was number 1 just because of that fact. But then there were those 2 girls that I just love so very much that I couldn't bring myself to place them any lower. Now, while I do think that what I just said is reason enough for this Barbie to be this high on this list, I feel like I should still cover the role that she plays in these 2 movies. So in Fashion Fairy Tale, I love that she's not afraid to speak up for herself to the director, even though it ends up getting her fired. And then when she does get fired and thinks that Ken has broken up with her, what does she do? Well, hops on a plane to Paris, of course. Which you could argue was a little bit of an overreaction, but I still love it nonetheless. Once she's there, she also practically saves her aunt's business from going under as well. I mean, she does this with the help of Elise's designs, but I still feel like you can't ignore the role that she played in all of that as well. She does say things like light bulb and brainstorm in this movie, but I am choosing to let that slide because she is just such a great actress. And then in Fairy's Secret, she learns to work with her nemesis Raquel, even though she's the reason why she thought that Ken broke up with her in the previous movie. She also interrupts a wedding, takes on Graciela, and saves Ken, which I just feel like goes to show that everything that she did in her movies is also just who she is in real life as well. Although I will admit that that sentence alone is kind of wild considering the fact that I'm talking about a fictional universe that exists within a fictional universe, but you guys know what I mean. All in all, I think that if you do follow the Barbie lore of it all, all, then you will agree with me in regards to this placement, because this Barbie definitely deserves all of the praise, in my opinion, if anything, for just like her stunning work over the years. Now, my number 2 might be a little bit unexpected, but it is Princess Annalise from The Princess and the Pauper.
I think you're like this.
A rock?
As I'm sure we all know by now, The Princess and the Pauper is my all-time favorite Barbie movie, and so I feel like whenever I rank anything The Princess and the Pauper related not first, that is just automatically going to be a surprising decision. But unlike Diamond Castle, this is actually one of those situations where I prefer the other girl to Barbie in this movie. And I know that I've argued before that Barbie could technically be both girls in this movie, as it is Barbie as the princess and the pauper after all. And I do think that it is funny to think about Barbie filming this movie in like a Parent Trap or a Liv and Maddie style where she's playing both roles but then it's mirrored. But I do feel like it would be unfair to include Erica on this list due to the rules that I established in the beginning of the video. But enough about Erica, this isn't about her, this is about Annalise, who I do love very much as well. Obviously, she is a princess, but she's also just so kind and down to earth and doesn't see herself as being above anyone else just because of her royal status. When she first meets Erica, she has no problem relating herself to her. She can also sing, has a pet cat, is studious, and loves science. When we first see her outside of the musical introduction, she is studying fool's gold. And even though she feels trapped by her princess duties and all she really wants to do is read science books all day, she still doesn't let this stop her from doing what she needs to do for her people. She still agrees to marry Dominic because she knows it's the right thing to do. And speaking of marriage, she's also in love with her best friend and tutor, Julian. Just like with Genevieve, she doesn't care who he is or what he comes from. All that matters to her is that he's a good person and the feelings that they have for one another. And then once again, she is also just so incredibly kind. After witnessing Madame Carp treating Erica like garbage and stealing all of her earnings, she walks right up to her and gives her a coin. And then she invites her to sing for them at the palace, which is a promise that I do think that she would have followed up on if she didn't then end up getting kidnapped. She is also so incredibly kind to Erica's seamstress friend and continues to do the work even though she has no idea what she's doing. And then this one's kind of a given because of her passion for science, but she is also so smart. She figures out how to escape captivity after a day and then finds her way back to the palace without a problem. And then also escaping out of the mines by filling it with water was all her idea. I will admit that I am a communications major, and so I have no idea if that was something that could actually work. But it does work in this universe, and so I feel like that's all that matters. And then also on top of all of this, she also comes up with a plan to save their kingdom by mining the geodes. I mean, I personally will never understand why they couldn't just take all of the gold back that Preminger stole from them to save their kingdom, but I will admit that Annalise's solution is a lot more clever. I personally think that Annalise is a great ruler, she cares about her people, and she comes from the best Barbie movie of all time, and so that's an easy runner-up in my books. Now we have finally reached our number 1, and so if you've been paying attention, you should know who that is, but if you haven't been, then you're in for a treat. Because my number 1 is Preminger from The Princess and the Pauper.
Is that really me? In there, looking at me? Lucky me.
I'm kidding, he's not my number 1, don't worry. I do think that that would be very funny if he was, but I also feel like that would kind of go against the whole Barbie girl power message, and so no, Preminger is not my number 1, and I do think I maybe have made this joke before in my Barbie Prince video, but whatever. My number 1 is actually Ro from Island Princess.
Nice to meet you. Really? That long?
I feel like this may be a little bit of a surprising choice to some of you, but I also feel like it maybe shouldn't be, because I feel like every single time that I've talked about this movie, I've always brought up the fact that I love Ro so much as a character. And I really do, I mean, she is my number 1 after all. First of all, let's talk about tragic backstories, because I definitely feel like Ro takes the cake in that regard. So she is a princess, but she doesn't know it, as she was stranded on an island after being lost at sea as a child. And she was able to survive on her own on this island, practically alone and raised by animals. And so it's also because of this that she's able to communicate with them, which I would argue is the coolest trait out of all of these girls. And I know I've said this for a lot of them, but kindness is really just so important to me. And there really is something special about how kind and just such a great friend Ro is. She offers to stay up all night with Tika after she's having nightmares, and she forgives her for stealing the note from the prince and then goes on to sing to her to make her feel better, even though in my opinion she didn't deserve any of that sympathy. Speaking of, she also has a beautiful voice and is extremely athletic due to her island upbringing. She can climb trees and swing from vines. She's also a botanist to an almost supernatural extent. We see her at one point just like push a flower pot into the sun and it just immediately blooms. And I know island life is really all that Ro has ever known, but she is still just so good at seeing the positive in everything. She never sees her island upbringing as being a negative thing. Instead, she focuses on the fact that she wasn't alone on the island and all of the friends that she's made because of it. I just feel like it would be so easy for her to be completely miserable for the life that she's lived so far, but she's not, and that's just like inspiring if I'm honest. There's also the fact that she saves the prince from the crocodiles and comes up with the idea to call on the dolphins to help them when they're lost at sea. And even though she was very obviously put on that boat to be left for dead, she still decides to go back and help. And then on top of all of that, in the end, she stands up for herself and proves that Ariana is the source of everything bad that's been happening, saving Antonio and the rest of his kingdom. I honestly have no idea what like the general consensus is on Ro and if this will be a popular opinion or not, but for me, she is without a doubt my favorite character that Barbie has ever played. But I want to know which character is your favorite, so be sure to let me know in the comments. Also, if you feel as though this list is just like completely whack, you can let me know that as well in the comments, but please be kind as I am just a girl. I think I maybe said this last time, but this was one of the last few like Barbie movie ideas that I've had. Besides, I guess, like ranking all of the other girls' dresses or the friends in general. So if you do have any other ideas, please let me know in the comments because I am just a little bit desperate. I actually had this video planned ever since the last one, which really helped me as I didn't need to go back and rewatch all of the movies. Instead, I took notes for this video when I was making my last video as well, which really helped. Overall, this was a lot of fun and a good change of pace. I always love making Barbie movie content for you all. And so as long as you guys keep watching, I'll keep making it. And so that is all from me. I hope you all have a wonderful day and I'll talk to you very, very soon. I feel like I always try to come up with something kind of fun or interesting to say at the end of the video for those that like stick around this long, but like, I got nothing. Like it's almost midnight and I'm excited to go to bed. So I'll leave it at that for today. Happy Halloween.